everybody, thank you for joining me, Krista, with Imagine That Scrapbooks and Gifts for ITTV Presents Tried Out Thursdays, week number 44. In today's online class, what we're going to be doing is using stencils to make a beautiful background for our cards. But before we get started on today's card, I do need to pick some winners. Now, of course, if you had noticed, we did have some technical difficulties with ITTV Presents week number 42. So you did have up until today to post a comment on week number 42 to win a prize. So I'll actually be announcing two winners today. And our first winner is from week number 42, and that winner is Miss Geraldine Wilcox Hudson. If you'll please email us at imaginethatscrapbooks@yahoo.com, claim your prize for week number 42. And our week number 43 winner is Miss Megan Creel. If you'll please email us at imaginethatscrapbooks@yahoo.com to claim your prize as well, we'll make sure we get both of you your prizes out to you. And we do again apologize for the technical difficulties we were experiencing while at CHA. So let's get started on this week's card. So sorry. And if you would like to be a winner, make sure you leave a comment this week, either on YouTube or on Facebook, for your chance to be entered in to win a prize. All right, let's go get started. Okay, so for today's card, we're going to be doing a stenciling technique. And I love using stencils with inks, paints, sprays, gesso, all sorts of different type of mediums. But what we're going to be doing today is an inking technique. So before we get started on that, I have my piece of white cardstock here. This is a textured cardstock, but I am going to be stamping on the non-textured side. So I have my sentiment already on my stamp press, and I'm going to ink it up. Okay, so we're going to just stamp this image right down here in the corner, and it's just a cute little sentiment that says just a note to say you're just a thought away. And you're going to want to make sure that you do even pressure onto the stamp. Okay. Now we're going to actually emboss that. So I have my little dish over here, and this is just some clear embossing powder. And I want to make sure, let's see here, that I pour it over my dish like so. Now with embossing powder, you don't want to flick the back of it, because if you do, then basically you are just flicking it off. That's a little too much. So we just say either lightly tap or tap like that. Alright, so we're going to put the lid back onto our embossing powder and move that off to the side. Then we're going to take our heat tool and heat it up. Oh, I guess I don't have my power strip on. Let me turn that on real quick, sorry. Okay, so we're just going to heat up our embossing powder. Now this is a diffused heat tool, which I like because you can literally hold it an inch away from your paper and you will never burn it. Unlike the bull-nosed embossers, or heat tools, I'm sorry, that will burn your paper. And this is a really pretty clear embossing powder, which is just going to make our sentiment kind of pop up against the stenciling that we're going to be doing here in a second. So we're just going to heat all of this up. And if you do have any questions on basic embossing, heat embossing, make sure you check out the link below, which will be linked directly to the ITTV, where we do heat embossing. Okay, so we're all nice and shiny. So now what we're going to do is start our stenciling. But what I'm going to do is actually mask this sentiment. So I've just cut out a piece of scrap paper to completely cover it. And then I'm going to take my stencil and place it on top. Now I like my stencil to look like it's going off the edge of the paper. So we are going to line it up just like so. And this is just some masking tape that I'm going to lay down just to make sure my stencil stays in place. Okay. So the inks that we're going to be using today are the Radiant Neons by Sukaniko or Imagine Crafts. And we have 3 different colors here, the electric blue, orange, and pink. And then I have my little finger dabbers or daubers, and we're going to pull up that ink and just kind of dab around. There is no rhyme or reason to this. You're just literally going to put the ink wherever you want to completely cover the stenciled image. And since this is a larger stencil, we are going to be speeding this part of the video up, so you don't have to watch me in real time do all of this. So please bear with me while we speed this section up. Alright, so now what we're going to do is going to be pulling off our stencil. And if you notice there, my paper underneath did slide a little, but that's okay. I was able to reshift it using my quick stick, or quicker picker poker picker upper, as we like to say. And so now I'm just going to wipe off some of the excess ink off my hands. Now I did contaminate my little dabber a little bit, but that's really easy to fix. You just take a moist paper towel or even a baby wipe and pull that color off just to kind of clean the tip. If you did get some on your ink pad, like I also did, do the same thing. Because the ink pad will not actually pull that color in, it'll just sit on the surface of the pad, so it's really easy to clean it off. Okay, so now we're going to finish cleaning off my hands, so not to continue to move that ink around. And put our lids back on. Now these are a pigment ink, which means they have a really long open time, or in other words, they take a long time to dry. That is for embossing purposes. So we're just going to hit it with our heat tool real quick, just to speed up that dry time. Okay, now I do want to add a little bit of a border, so we're going to open back up the pink. And I'm going to do what we call, what you could do with direct to paper, but instead of using my foam pad, I'm going to actually be using my finger dabber. And the reason why I'm doing this is, of course, just to give it that pretty pink border, but I'm doing it with the dabber as opposed to the ink pad. So if it does tear up the foam, it's the foam on this and not my entire ink pad. And the purpose of that is when you go to stamp an image, then you don't have that displaced color from where the foam has been kind of ripped or torn. Alright, so now we're going to hit that with our heat tool again real quick. I love that pigment inks have a longer open time, but we really don't need that open time right now with this particular technique. Now if we were going to do an embossed part, then definitely we'd want that to have a little bit longer of an open. But since we're not, we're going to just dry it. Alright, I just love how stenciling looks. So let's go ahead and add that to our card. Now what I've done is already layered my green and my gray onto my card. That way you didn't have to watch that with this being a little bit longer of a technique with stenciling. So now we're going to adhere this to our card. I don't really want to rub that since that ink is still a little wet, so I'm just kind of patting it. Alright, now let's add some bling. We're just going to do this one. I wanted something a little bit simpler for this card. That way it wasn't too big and bulky and we could actually mail this. If you watch a lot of my cards or know my style, I really do like things that have a lot of dimension and texture. So this particular one is definitely out of my norm or my comfort zone, but that's okay. I do like doing that. this one actually go down off onto the orange. I think that's going to be too many greens up there, so let's switch a couple of these around. All right, there you go. A quick card using a stenciling technique. Well, we'll see you guys next week.